Hello, everyone. This is the part two of the four-part series of order based planning with flexible master data. In this video, I am going to primarily focus on two areas. First of which is master data navigations, and then we will focus on planning run profiles. But before we touch that, in the first part, what you have said is what are the basic configurations and what are the basic master data that we need in order to set up and run a order based planning area with flexible master data. So if you remember and recollect the last video, this is where I showed you all the required master data and their associated fields that are very crucial for running the order based planning with flexible master data. Now, once this master data has been updated, there are a few prerequisites that we need in terms of ensuring that our master data, our primarily our planning levels, versions are all updated and in sync. So the first step, after we have updated our master data, we need to run few application jobs in certain sequence so as to ensure consistency in the whole data model for order based planning. First and foremost is, if you go to application jobs, you will find a lot of application job templates related to order based planning. So after the updation of any master data, the first and foremost thing that we should do is we need to run a master data synchronization so that the master data gets synchronized across all objects. So once you come into the master data synchronization, here you will be given with your planning version, and you have the option to remove orphan data, you schedule it, and synchronization is done. Once this synchronization is done, the next application job that we need to run is called repair supply chain network inconsistency. This is kind of a master data consistency that we used to do or even still do in APO. This is also a very important step wherein we need to basically just select the appropriate planning area version and schedule it. And if there are any inconsistencies or some master data that needs to be repaired, will be automatically taken care by the system. And once this is done, as a last step, what we should do is we should run update versions. So these are the three jobs that we should run in sequence in order to synchronize everything. Now this job has no parameters. Once you run update version, all the associated version with this OBP planning area will be updated. So at this point, we are completely done with our basic setup, master data maintenance, required prerequisite to execute the required application jobs in terms of repairing master data synchronization, updation of version, and before that, in the first part, we have also seen activating OBB planning levels and allocation profiles. Now, since that part is done, now I need to basically plan and do the required config needed to take the actual supply planning run. So, planning run profile is what I will show you. But before that, now we have seen that the master data has been already updated. But in a real life scenario, master data is something that will be integrated using SIF. And primarily, I will show you how you can navigate the master data from the IBP Web UI. So under General Response Planner, you will see generally we have this tiles or applications, product locations, T lanes, view location products, which are self-explanatory and you can go and check each of them. But the one that is worth mentioning is this app called Supply Chain Dependency. This app is equivalent to WEF that we used to do in APO, which used to give us the where else used list. So primarily the supply chain dependency, this app is an equivalent of where else used. So if you select the appropriate planning area and the version, and here in the object type, you will see you have primarily three object type: location, product, resource, and vendor product. For this purpose, I'm just selecting everything and I click on this. So you see that here it will show you all the available object for the planning area in terms of master data, log prod, resource, location, product, vendor product. And if you see, it also shows us the number of planning object and links. So for example, if I look into this location product combination 103, if I go inside that, what I will see is that this product location combination is being used with a resource and the location is YD02. So in this location, there is a resource, and this is also in a turn interlinked with an object called 87, which is a component. And if you look into this resource, and if you click onto this, it will automatically take you to the associated resource app, wherein you can see the resource, plant, capacity unit, what kind of resource category it is, etc. Similarly, the network section also gives you what all are inside the part of the network. So if you look into this, this will basically show you the where else functionality, where else use functionality for location, product, resource, and vendor product. Now, moving on to creation of planning run profiles. Now, what is a planning run profile? Planning run profile, we can say, is a accumulation of different options, priorities, and settings which we create based on the decision whether we want to run a supply planning in terms of finite heuristics or a supply planning with optimizer, or even let's say whether I want to run optimizer with capacity as a constraint, supplier as a constraint, or just capacity as a constraint. So based on the business requirement and the business need, in order based planning we can have multiple profile runs. Now for this purpose of demo, I have only created one planning run profile, and I will be showing you what I have created and what are the aspect of the most important things here. So in this planning run profile, if you see, first is the demand selection. So here we have the option to select what kind of demand we want to use. So this is denotes whether we want to include sales orders or deliveries as a part of the demand, or it's just forecast. So for this purpose, I haven't integrated the sales orders. So I have just kept the forecast as on, and I have also updated this version option called update forecast fulfillment key figure to yes. So what is this forecast fulfillment key figure does? There is a predefined set of fulfillment key figures that we have already defined in the settings for order based planning, which in a way will basically, after the planning run is finished, it will tell me what is my unconstrained forecast, how much is my constraint forecast, how much of that constraint forecast is being delivered in time, how much of it is being delivered late, and how much of the forecast is unfulfilled. So this option primarily controls how we will view those different forecast output related key figures. Moving on, the next important is demand prioritization rule. So irrespective of the fact whether we are running finite heuristics or optimizer, the demand prioritization rule is mandatory. So in demand prioritization rule, if we create by default, the system will create one segment with pre-allocation and the remaining is catch-all segment. And at the same time, you can also create different segments as per the requirement. So for example, it could be that, let's say I have a lot of customers, which I have broadly categorized them as A, B, and C. So my priority that I want to do is category A comes first. So I will have a segment for cat A. I will have a different segment for cat B, and I will have a different segment for cat C. And each of these segments I will give predefined priorities so that the finite heuristics or the optimizer basically looks into that. So now for this purpose, I have just created one, which is by default the catch-all segment, wherein I have given some basic rules that the way the demand should be sorted or sequenced is, first it should be sorted based on the location, and after that it should be sorted based on the demand of the product ID. And in the product ID, I have also defined a custom sequence. And that sequence is, I have said my first priority is product 105, followed by 104 and 103. So this is just an example. So there, primarily what you can do is, here you can basically give different kinds of sort sequences with different custom sequences with different sub conditions. This is an extremely flexible area, very, very flexible, and a lot of business requirement based on demand prioritization is mapped over here. So at this point, it's just location or product that I'm using, but you have the option to basically select location, location product, demand, customers, and inside them all their associated attributes. So after I do the demand prioritization rule, the next is the switchable constraints. This is the section where we define for this planning profile what would be my constraint. So for example, if you see there are multiple constraints, supplier, capacity, allocation, planning start, lot sizes, so on and so forth. If I mark everything as inactive, in a way, I am creating a planning profile which is equivalent to unconstrained heuristics. So this is one way that we can configure finite heuristics to work and behave in an unconstrained manner. But at this point of time, for this demo, I have activated only few constraints. One is the supplier constraint, the capacity constraint, the allocation constraint, and the planning start. After that comes the maximum lateness. So it is the maximum delay allowed, and it is for the pre-allocation segment, the segment that we have but the system has created by default. So here you can create your own custom sequence, but I am not going into that complexity at this demo. So whatever is the default, I have kept. Then inventory cost. Here I have the option for fair share, which I haven't activated yet. And since I'll be using optimizer, so I have just kept one for the inventory cost, holding cost rate. By default, when we create these two segments get created, the one and the catch-all segment. And in each of the segment, I have given a different cost rate. And inside this segment, if you see, I have given certain conditions. What are those conditions? The condition I have given that as location is equal to YD2. Here I have options to give location, location product, and based on that, I can create condition, sub condition, and sub rules as well. I haven't kept anything for safety stock violation or anything in the max safety stock. After the inventory cost comes the transportation. Here also I have just kept based on the transportation cost rate with a predefined segment and certain conditions where my conditions are the same as I have mentioned before. Now comes the procurement cost. In the procurement cost also similarly I have maintained, but here are multiple rules will multiple cost and multiple conditions we can create here. And I have done the same for transportation. So this is a condition preview that I have created and you can see that. Same applies for production cost, wherein I also have different cost for each sequence segments with some conditions or certain sequence priorities. Substitution I have kept, I haven't used, so I'm skipping that. And then comes the demand cost. So in the demand cost, you have determine demand cost by demand cost rules or by demand prioritization. So here I have selected the cost rule, and in the cost rule, I have not selected the late delivery, but I have created a rule for non-delivery cost rate, which I have created and given a quite high non-delivery cost rate as we generally do when we model optimizer. After that, the next parameter is an optimizer specific parameter. If your planning run profile is being created for the purpose of finite heuristic, then you don't need to maintain this. But if you are planning optimizer along with discretizations and deployment, you need to do this. This optimizer parameter are almost similar to our time series based optimizer. So once you take a look, you can totally make sense of it. And last is the general parameters. This general parameters is mandatory irrespective of the fact whether we are using finite heuristics or optimizer. So for production freeze, whether we want to use work days or some specific calendar days that we can choose here. And my SOS priority, should I consider all my production source of supply? Should I consider my procurement source of supply? Or should I consider my transportation source of supply? So production source I have selected. Since there is a vendor scenario here, I am just turning this on the transportation source of supply. And the last option is if you want to do an initial push deployment from a factory location to the next DC, then you can select this option of excess push. And the last is the support parameter, wherein we can put additional parameters if we have some specific requirement for which those parameters can be provided by SAP. But there are certain parameters that we commonly use, like for aggregate constraint or product decomposition. So those parameters can be added here. So once that is done, now I have set up my planning run profiles. I have set up my master data that is required for running, and I am basically completed with the setup and configs, and now it's time to take a planning run. And in order to take a planning run, I will first save this and then I will go and take a planning run. So for taking a planning run, we generally go to application jobs, but this time the application job is application job for order based planning. So here, if we go and select create, here you will see there are all OBP related job templates that are available. And the one that I will be selecting is order based planning supply planning run. Now here we have to select the planning area and the version. Here we have the option which type of algorithm we want to run, heuristics or optimizer, and whether we want to run this from an Excel front end or not. So if we turn this on as yes, then this will be available as an application job template. If no, then that won't be available. Here we have multiple options. Either we can run like by subnetworks, subnetworks by subnetwork ID, or even by location product attribute that we very frequently or the most used in APO. So similarly, for that purpose, I'm using my location product, wherein I will select the required products here, and I will select the location. There is no option to select vendor because wherever vendor comes as a dependent master data object, it will be taken into consideration. And I am selecting the MRP types. Now here I need to select the planning run profile that I have created. So since there is one, I will select the appropriate one and generate data for planning run monitor. It is for generating the logs. So I will select it as yes. Once done, now I am ready to take a supply planning run. So in the next video, I will show you the output of the supply planning run and how and where we can see the supply plan output with different constraint bottleneck along with how my entire supply chain is looking. So in the third video, I will be sharing or doing a more deep dive into post supply planning run. What are the results? What are the findings? Where to look? How we can see constraints? How we can see bottlenecks? And how we can do our planning from a supply planning point of view. That's all I wanted to cover in this video. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to it.